So your parents tell you to pay off your house, and the internet everywhere you hear tells you to invest. Hey guys, Scott here. I'm 35 years old. I have around 9 tenancies, different properties that I manage, and I also have my own e-commerce business and working a full-time job. I'm just doing these videos for the younger version of myself so people can learn from my mistakes when they start to earn good money, because Jesus, I've made some mistakes along the way, and I figured I would just try and give back, and whatever that turns out to be, that turns out to be. But I really wanted to do these videos just to show people that you can get ahead if you're willing to have a crack, and also, you don't have to be perfect, and you can still make things work. And yeah, let's dive in. So before we start and we get into this topic of should you pay off your house or should you invest the additional income that you have or the spare few dollars you have left at the end of the month. Now, when making these big financial decisions, you really need to have your vision at the forefront of your mind. Take that macro view and really understand where you want to be in 10, 20, 30, 40 years time, especially when you're in your 20s and 30s. That's when you can make a real difference and kind of traject your life in a positive direction just by kind of having some big lofty goals and having a pathway forward. I think it's the most under talked about thing, but one of the most highly rated things you can do for your life is actually just think about what you want your life to look like in the future and not just fumble through life. Now, especially being a young guy who's been in FIFO for like 10, 12 years or something, my biggest thing is don't go and buy stupid shit. Like, you just really don't need it. Don't go and buy that fancy ute. Trust me, I fucking made the mistake. Just take it from me, start to plan your life, look forward and see, and you'll be surprised at how far your money will go if you just make smarter decisions. Like, we're all going to waste money along the way, but just honestly, just try and just be sensible with what you do. All right, so let's just dive into paying off your mortgage earlier or investing into shares, and let's do the comparison on what would be the smarter investment option, right? Especially for a young guy, maybe earning a little bit more money, they're doing FIFO. Investing can be a very daunting thing. And sometimes, all we get taught from our parents is just to pay down debt, pay down debt, pay down debt. And that's because they want the best for us. I think investing is a smarter way to go if you have that risk tolerance. And that's another key thing. And I think that's where you have to really, come back to that vision of what you want for your life and how much debt you're willing to live with. And all the rest. So first, before we get into this, we really need to understand the basics of how a mortgage works. This is a quick 20-second breakdown of how home loans actually work. So you borrow money from the bank to buy a house. That's the loan amount or the principal. Let's say you've been a good little boy and you saved a deposit. So you only need to borrow $500,000 for that $600,000 house. That $500,000 comes with a monthly repayment. The repayment has two parts. It has the principal, which is the amount that actually pays down the loan, or the interest. This is what the bank charges you for borrowing their money. Interest is calculated on whatever you still owe. So the higher your balance, the more interest you pay. Both of these together equal your monthly repayment. Early on, most of your payment is in interest. Later, most of it goes to the principal. This just means the repayment stays roughly the same over the 30-year lifespan of your mortgage, but split between the principal and interest, and it just changes as the lifetime of the loan goes on. So the big issue with this and your home loan is that you don't really make a dent in the money you owe until about year 20, because the banks always want to recoup their investment ASAP. Remember that whenever you take out a loan, the bank always wins. So we've now got this $500K loan for our house. We need to understand how much interest we're going to pay on that time horizon of 30 years. If we use the average interest rate over the last 30 years, which is about 6 to 7%, you'll see that we actually paid $579,000 of interest on top of the original $500K loan amount. So that's why your parents always say pay down your loan, because you're actually paying double the amount you borrowed over a 30-year time frame. So let's say we had that extra $1,000 a month because we're on a high income and we want to pay down our mortgage. If we use the Combat Home Loan Repayment Calculator to determine what this would look like, straight away we can see that paying down a mortgage would be a super smart option, right? Not only because we're moving towards being debt-free or financially free, but because we are also saving a shitload of interest, saving us a ton of dollars over that 30 years. We can also reduce our mortgage to 13 years and 6 months. On top of that, I'm pretty sure we'll probably save around $298,000 worth of interest over the lifetime of the loan. So that's pretty appealing for someone who doesn't have a very high risk tolerance and wants to remove debt. But again, we're not here just to talk about how much interest we can save. We're here to talk about where should you put your extra $1,000 a month. If we look at the stock market, we have to understand the basics and pick a form of investing in the stock market or the share market. Let's keep it simple and say we just want to invest in a really low risk ETF, something that tracks the ASX 200. This is the top 200 companies in Australia. Your average return on these ETFs is around 9% pre-tax over the past 30 years. Or I would say, depending on your tax situation, you would be around 6% after tax. And that would be a really good outcome for us. This includes capital growth, dividends, but let's not get into dividends and franking credits and all that for now. Let's just stick to the average return rate of 9% pre-tax or 6% post-tax. Instead of putting $1,000 on our mortgage every month, we invested $1,000 into an ETF with a starting balance of around 10K. So we had 10K to start with, we put 10K in, and then we invested $1,000 every month for the next 30 years. So the value of our ETF at the 30-year mark would be $1.9 million. That would be pre-tax. But again, we have to take into consideration tax because that's the right thing to do. So that would probably give us a valuation of about $1.2 million. So let's compare the two options right next to each other. If we bought a house for $600K and we had a $500K loan, we paid an extra $1,000 a month at an interest rate of 6%, which is the average over the last 30 years, we can see the extra repayments saved us around $286,000, which allowed us to pay our mortgage nearly 14 years sooner. But if we invested the same amount of money into shares, so starting with a 10K initial balance and $1,000 a month invested, we can see that we would have shares worth around $1.2 million. So again, I want to stress this is financially, from a numbers perspective, investing is always the winner. Now, again, there's a few factors here that we haven't taken into account and people will probably comment and whinge and bitch. This is why you have to take into account your own numbers because we're all different. We all have different goals or plans or different risk tolerances. Are you the kind of person who wants to purchase multiple properties and live in a big, serious amounts of debt to grow your wealth? Then realistically, paying off investment debt is probably not the way to go and you might want to use that debt as a tax deduction. Maybe you're a little bit more conservative like me and you want a hybrid strategy. You don't mind having some investment debt, but you don't always want to be drowning in debt and let it ruin your life. So you are constantly looking on how you can use your money in different places to leverage, but also live a good quality of life with low financial stress. I also know some people who just want to pay off their house, and that's okay. That's a super risk-free way of getting ahead and beating the system because being debt-free and owning your own house is a huge win, especially since the latest ABS census data says that only 45% of people under 34 own their own home. So buying and paying off your place still puts you in front of 50% of the population of your age if you're under 34. So it really does come down to what kind of person you are and what do you want from your life. So that's it. The real purpose of this video is to hopefully start to educate younger guys on using their money smarter, especially once you start to earn some decent cash work in FIFO or in your corporate job. I'm not pretending to be an expert here. I'm just sharing some little life lessons and little tips that I've learned along the way, and I wish that I knew sooner, especially at that 20, 25 year mark. And hopefully some of you can learn and grow from my mistakes and not make those mistakes. And if you appreciate this, just give us a subscribe or follow us on socials or do something or share this with someone that genuinely needs it, or someone that you've got that's like-minded in thoughts and wants to be financially independent. That's how I want to grow this channel, is literally by sharing it with friends and family, and hopefully it takes hopefully someone can take some advice out of this and learn something. So cheers guys,